Okay, I'm here with Incarnation. So the first place I want to start with you in this interview is this weird team that people have probably maybe heard a bit about, but they won't know the history of at all, where you played in this lineup where it actually was you and Nukeduck in the same team. Like, how did that work for a start? You're both mid laners, and like, this was before Nukeduck obviously became like the Lemon Dogs Nukeduck, so he wasn't very known that much himself, he's just a solo queue player. What was this time period like?
What originally happened was Yamato Cannon and Nukeduck played in a team together, and then they decided to replace some players on that team, or they split up or something. And then Yamato Cannon approached me and wanted to play with me. But Nukeduck was there as well, and he was a mid laner. But Nukeduck was willing to like change role or whatever. And the same with Yamato Cannon. So they were always like really close friends or whatever. So they were like, they decided they wanted to go bottom together. And it worked out great. Like, we had great results in scrims and so on. But unfortunately, we got disqualified from the LCS qualifier. But I think we would have been a really good team.
When it was during season 3 and you couldn't play, and this was when Nukeduck had his like coming out party, he became really good. He was doing well against like even top players like Speke, Alexich, these like legendary players. When you saw him in this form and he went to Worlds, he played Faker and all those guys, was that like just a one-off for Nukeduck? Could he be at that level again, do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think Nukeduck can be on that level again. I also think it has a bit to do with how the meta is right now. It doesn't really favor him that much. Do
you think anything happened to his playing style? Because one of the things is when he was in those NIP lineups, they had a lot of talent in those lineups, but there was something about like the style. It never looked the same as like Nukeduck from Lemon Dogs, you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened. It seems to me like his playstyle on stage at least have changed. He seems much more like passive or scared compared to how he plays in solo queue at least. Like in solo queue, he will like punish every mistake, whereas in LCS he plays more like scared, I guess.
So whenever everyone used to make like the hype videos of Incarnation, while you still couldn't play, they made like all the fizz highlights. You had like one of the most aggressive styles, like the 1v1 style, where you're just going to kill the other mid laner. Do you, like, obviously that the problem with that is it means that hype is always going to be there when you try and be a pro player, because people want to see that. They want to see that Incarnation come in, and they want to see him like be like the Bjergsen, like a new Bjergsen, okay? What is your expectation for your career? Like, is the goal to become that sort of a player but in LCS? Is it possible to be that kind of player, do you think?
It's definitely possible, yeah, but it also depends how we play as a team and so on, and the meta, because I also think back then in season 3, I wouldn't say I was a better player, but I would say I was better than others at least. Like, back then, everyone was like much worse, I guess, and I was just like a step above them. So that's where like the hype originally started, because I was pretty much beating everyone with like no problem whatsoever in any matchup.
In Cloud9, knowing like what a totally different style of mid laner they had before, and the old mid laner was like the shot caller, so even the team playing around him was very different. Do you think that style of the old Incarnation could work in Cloud9? Do you have to play differently, do you think, for the team? What is your sense at the moment for how it should go?
I mean, it could definitely work out in Cloud9, but we would have to play differently, or at least get more used to playing as a stage, playing as a team. Because right now, it probably wouldn't work out, but it could in the future for sure. But we would have to play different, or better at least.
One of the interesting things about the old Cloud9 was like it had a very unique matchup in terms of the mid and the jungle. So everyone knows how famous the mid-jungle synergy was. But in this case, the old Meteos was a guy who just farmed the whole game long. Only came for like guaranteed ganks pretty much. Meanwhile, High sort of just learned to play without ganks basically, and even to know sometimes he might lose lane. Have you kind of figured out yet, like, how is Incarnation going to work with Meteos? What do you think the matchup should be like in terms of how you play?
I've kind of figured out how to play. I know Meteos is like a very calculated jungler. So he's not really going to go for like these high risk, high reward scenarios. He's just going to like, if he sees a risk, he's not going to go for it. Then he'd rather just farm, which is also fine, because he will always like have a lead on the enemy jungler. But at the same time, it means I cannot pressure the lane as much as I would want to, in some scenarios at least.
So does that mean as a mid laner, like, are you having to learn like a different style of how to play then, to use this particular, like the strengths of Meteos?
I mean, I don't really have to learn another style. I just have to play like more careful and not play as dominant as I perhaps could, but yeah.
So in season 3, when a lot of your solo queue hype came around, this was like the era of the assassins, and obviously the most famous one is Faker. When he played all the assassins, he was able to just snowball lane almost every time, it felt like. Then in season 4, if we also think of Faker, that was the kind of like more the more passive farming style. Like people were playing Ziggs and stuff middle. Nowadays, where are we at right now? Like, is it between the two? Is it one of the extremes? What do you think the current meta is like?
It's mostly about control mages right now, but champions like LeBlanc and sometimes Fizz are still good in some scenarios. But yeah, mainly control mages right now.
When someone like, okay, so a good example is Westdoor, he literally went to MSI and apparently he didn't care about the meta. He thought, I'll just play Zed and Fizz, and he managed to make it work sometimes. What are the circumstances in which you can still play like those assassin champions? Because obviously against like tanks, it's going to be difficult to do things.
I mean, it's definitely a risk to me. At least seems like a risk to me. But you need to be like very accurate in lane to win that matchup and to actually like be more useful than the other mid laner. So you need to have like a lot of vision around mid and play very aggressive together with your jungler for that to work out.
On one hand, it seems like there's actually a lot of picks going to mid, but when people talk about the meta, they're talking about very specific champions that are super strong. Is there like an optimal way at the moment to play mid? If someone really wants to, like if Faker really wanted to go back to assassin styles, could he make it work? Is there like the best overall style? Like would a player not quite as good as Faker, but if he just only spammed like Azir, Cassiopeia, would he do better overall, do you think?
Not actually sure, but I think definitely Faker could definitely make it work. Because Benji is like, or at least when he plays with Benji, it seems like a ward buff for Faker. So Faker can pretty much play whatever and do whatever he wants in mid lane. And doesn't really have to like be that much scared about the other jungler. He just has to like outplay the other mid laner.
If someone's trying to be like a 1v1 mid laner, like just carry their lane, is it actually better to have the supportive style of jungler who just, his idea is he just babysits the lane, stops ganks happening? Or do you think it's better to have like the aggressive style who's going to try and always force ganks or force ganks elsewhere? What do you think is the overall approach?
Kind of a mix of both. Like a supportive jungler is probably the best, but if you have an aggressive jungler who like sits in the enemy jungle, for example, like Svenska maybe, then it can also work out because then you constantly have pressure elsewhere and the jungler can't really gank you, so that would work as well.
So another player who's been around the whole time you've been in solo queue and been waiting to come to the pro scene is Froggen. He's a very famous player, but he has a style that not everyone appreciates. Like some people think it's boring or it's too safe or whatever. Obviously at the moment, his career, a bit like Nuketox, isn't in a great place right now. Overall, what do you think of Froggen's general approach? Like, is his approach not working anymore in the game? Like his philosophy on how you play the game?
I mean, in Season 2, he was definitely the best mid laner in EU. But right now, I'm not really sure. It seems like he's kind of fallen off a bit. I don't think it has too much to do with his playstyle. I don't know. Maybe he'll come back. I'm not really sure. I haven't paid that much attention to him.
Usually players who had your playing style, like very aggressive and want to have like assassin type champions, they're usually the players in general I found who don't think that Froggen's style is so good because their philosophy is like, okay, I want to put pressure on all the time. Even if I'm not directly killing the enemy, like I'm forcing him back under his tower and stuff, whereas Froggen's style is more like, I'll farm and if a chance presents itself, okay, maybe then I go in that sense. What do you think the pros and cons are of his style?
The way Froggen plays, it seems to me he's like kind of like a controlling mid laner kind of. It's rare that he will go for the kills, but he always tries to like have control over the mid lane and like basically just out farm. But he will never go for like these huge risks. He will just play to like kind of win lane, but not like win it too hard either, like so that there's no risk in it. So it's a pretty good style, I would say.
If you took the two styles, okay, like the really aggressive style and this controlling Froggen style, so let's just use two really good examples. We'll have Bjergsen and Froggen. If they both were at absolute peak form, like they had the best champions for them, they're in the best meta, and they have like a good team around them all, or we remove the teams just 1v1, should the Bjergsen style actually win, do you think? Like, can the Froggen style combat it?
I think actually Froggen's style works better against these aggressive players like Bjergsen, for example, because Froggen will like almost never die in lane. And if Bjergsen plays like that, it's also risky in a sense. So that way I actually think Froggen's style would be better if they would both be like equally good or whatever.
Oh, okay. Is it more difficult to pull off the Froggen style, do you think?
I'm not sure if it's more difficult, but it's like much more calculated. So I guess in a way it is.
When you think of the past, you couldn't play in Season 3, you couldn't play in Season 4. Like, it might be an obvious question to say, like, oh, is Season 3 the time you wish you played in? But is there like a specific meta where you think you would have been like, this would have been you like a 100% level?
Yeah, definitely Season 3. I think that would have been where I would 100% have been able to live up to the hype. But at the same time, right now I've had some LAN jitters, so I haven't been able to play how I normally would. So we'll see.
Okay, when you say that, like LAN jitters, it's actually quite common when players have never played any LANs whatsoever. Usually, even good players, they start off, they have some, like they're getting comfortable doing it. So, what is different? What feels different when you're in the game? I mean, when you're actually playing the game, can't you zone out a bit and you're just inside the game? Do you still feel like you're on a stage and stuff?
I don't know. You just don't feel as comfortable as if you were to play from home or somewhere else. So it's a bit different. Like I'm not sure what it is, but everything just feels different.
Do you have any issues when you're on a stage scenario with like, if you're at home, okay, and you see like an opportunity, okay, so if you think how Faker plays, one of the crazy things about Faker is it's like if he sees the tiny opening, he just goes like that. He just, no hesitation, he makes the play, even if it's a really difficult mechanical play. Is it hard to do that when you're playing for a team and it's in a proper league match? Do you err on the side of caution at the moment?
Right now I would say, yeah, I'm a bit nervous on stage, but I think by time I will go for it if I see the opportunity for sure. Because I think that's something you have to do as if you want to be the best.
When people think of the hype that was surrounding you before you joined Cloud9, the idea, at least to fans, was like, okay, we can't have High anymore and he can't do the shot calling anymore, but the way we'll make up for that is we need like a Bjergsen. Like we need the guy who's just going to be so good in mid lane that, hey, maybe we never have to shot call from behind, we're just going to be so good as a team. Are you someone where, okay, let's imagine the two best scenarios that could happen. Like it could go amazingly, you could be the new Bjergsen, Cloud9 could win LCS, or maybe it goes really badly. Are you willing to be the guy where you'd let yourself get completely dumpster, you're going to go 100% all in? Will you try and play like more of a safer style in general, do you think?
I mean, these games that I've played so far, week 1 and week 2, I have played much more safe than I normally would. So yeah, if that's what it takes, then yeah, but I would obviously prefer being more the like carry type of player, but the opportunity haven't really presented itself yet, so we will see.
In the past, mid lane throughout the history of League of Legends has nearly always been, if not the most important carry role, like one of them definitely. Where do you think mid is in relation to AD carry at the moment?
Ooh, to AD carry, I'm not sure, but mid lane is for sure not the like most carry-oriented role right now, unless you like entirely focus on getting mid ahead and snowbally. Because right now it's about control mages, and those are not champions that can like hard carry through laning phase. It's more of like you scale, you control mid lane and have vision and try to roam and so on. But mid lane can impact the game pretty okay, but it's not like it used to be in Season 3, for example, with Assassins.
What do you think of how does the style of Meteor's shot calling impact the way you play the game? Like does he actually decide when the ganks will come and stuff, and you just have to respond to it? Do you have some input in it?
Meteor's style is a bit different than other junglers I've played with. He doesn't take commands. So if you want help or whatever, you can like ask, but you don't have the final say in it. He have the final say in it. Okay. So he kind of does his own thing, but if you like need help or whatever, then he will come and help you out.
I know I've spoken to you in the past, you watch some of the Asian leagues. So at the moment, there's actually a lot of really good like Chinese, Korean mids, but it's really hard for people to tell who's actually good because some of them have like way better teams than other ones. It's always hard to separate the team from the player. Who do you think at the moment is the best mid?
Ooh, in Asia, I'm actually not sure. Probably like Faker, I would say, but Easyhoon is really good as well. I think it's kind of interesting between those two because Faker is, I would say he's the better player of these two individually, but it seems to me like Easyhoon kind of fits the team better with how the meta is right now, but probably one of those two.
What do you think of Pawn? Because obviously he can like be a fan favorite.
Oh, I haven't actually paid much attention to Pawn, but it seems to me like he does what the team needs, but he's not like the type of carry player that much himself.
So at the moment, there's certain champions that are just like, they're only being played for like 2 weeks at a time, okay? So like Victor came up last season and sometimes it's played now. Now we literally have things like Varus. People, well, you tried it yourself, Cogmore. Sometimes we're seeing it in the mid lane, depending on the player. Do you think any of these picks will be around in like 6 months? Are these just like, do they have weird reasons as to why people are picking them now?
Yeah, I think there's weird reasons as to why they're picked. For example, the only reason I intended to pick up Kog'Maw in the first place was because Azir was so strong in lane, and he seemed to me like the best pick against Azir, because after laning phase, Azir couldn't really do much against Kog'Maw. And I guess Varus is kind of the same purpose, but I'm not really sure. People pick it into whatever, but I think they'll fall out of meta eventually.
So one of the most confusing mids for me to watch is actually Power of Evil, speaking of some of these weird picks. Because there's certain strange picks that he just seems like almost the best Westerner on, but then weirdly, most of the best players also are amazing on every meta pick. Like they play all the broken stuff as well. What's your evaluation of Power of Evil?
He's a good player, and it seems to me like he can play. He have a very big champion pool, and he plays all the different styles really good. So he's a very good player overall.
One of the names who's come back into LCS this season is Xpeke. People didn't know would he retire after Fnatic, and then he was in Challenger Series for a while. Do you think Xpeke, like when you think of the classic Xpeke style, what is Xpeke like as a player?
He's very like kind of safe on lane. He's very hard to play against because he's the type of guy you can't really kill on lane or like pressure, because he knows a lot about the game, and he knows how to play the game and how to win the game. But honestly, when they requalified for LCS, I honestly didn't have high expectations for him. I thought he kind of like fell out of the game or like stopped caring as much, but he seems to be playing really well right now. So I'm excited to see how he's going to do.
If someone's never seen you play, they've only seen the first few LCS games, so they haven't seen like the real Incarnation yet. Could you pick out another player, it can be from any region, and compare like, okay, this is what, ideally, this is the kind of player I'd be. Is there someone whose style's similar or the skills are similar?
Possibly Fibivin, I would say.
Okay.
Because we can play kind of the same champions, and we're kind of the same, I would say. But yeah, right now I haven't really played that much, and the games we played haven't really gone that well, and I haven't played well on stage either. So
actually, for Vivian was pretty much like a peer of yours, because he was someone where he only just came in this season, well, last split, but he was always around. Like he was around the challenger scene, and people were always wondering, will he get into LCS? Do you think something changed in him? From the Vivian who's able to like beat Faker at times to the old one who was stuck in challenger?
I'm not sure. Back when he wasn't challenger, he wasn't as impressive as he is right now. Because I remember playing against him in solo queue like way back, and he was not impressive to me at all compared to now. Because right now he's like at the top level. Like now he's like very hard to lane against, and he knows what to do. So I think he have just improved a lot in a short time.
How would you describe like his general style? Because if you just looked at the scorelines, if I didn't show you the game, I just showed you like the scoreboard at the end. He's often playing like carry type champions, and he might have a crazy scoreline. But it feels when you watch him in game like it's not like he just goes ham all the time. What do you think his style is like?
His style is, ideally, I think he'd want to be an aggressive player, but I think he can play most styles. He just plays whatever the team needs, and it seems to be working out for Fnatic. So I don't think he have like a specific style. So he just plays whatever fits the team.
What do you think the best Featherwin champions are?
His best champions? Aggressive champions like Assassins, like Zed and Ahri back then when she was viable. He was a good Ahri player, but I don't actually know right now.
Okay. If I asked you, just from knowing all these different EU mid laners, so you can't know this, but I want you to try and predict. If we came back 1 year from now and did an interview, you just have to pick which of the EU mids will be the best 1 year from now. So there's tons to pick from here. You can go many directions. Who would you pick? Just this is the guy I know in 1 year, he'll practice the most, he'll got his level the highest. Who would you pick?
It would probably be Fibivin. I would say maybe Nukeduck. Depends if he can find out how to play his style and if Rocket gets going. But I think probably Fibivin, yeah.
So you're more confident in him than Bjergsen?
Oh, I thought you meant those who play in EU.
You can count him as well.
Oh, I would actually say Bjergsen then, if I'm discluding myself. Yeah.
Do you think anything changed with Bjergsen from when he went from EU to NA? Is he still the same guy that was in Copenhagen Wolves, etc.?
He probably improved. He improved a lot, but also the way TSM plays, it's hard for him to like not win lane. He's very good mechanically, and his team focuses a lot on mid, so he's always like the guy who's shining on TSM. So yeah. Do
you have a theory as to what happened to Bjergsen at MSI? I'm still waiting to see where is he? Where's Bjergsen now?
I don't know. I think it was just the champions he was forced onto, because he was winning like early game versus Faker, And versus Verbeven, he was also winning early game, but I think it was just more TSM as a team who failed rather than Bjergsen.
If you're a mid laner, okay, so he's a very mechanically strong mid laner. What can you actually do if you play like Cho'Gath, Urgot mid lane? What's the ideal scenario for these champions?
To just make the other mid laner not as impactful and just win mid lane, but it's very hard to get 1v1 kills on these champions, but it's mainly just get control of mid lane, set up vision, and just makes it easier for your team. Puts less pressure on them.
So when someone's like a Bjergsen style mid, often people are looking at like his jungler. And if he does badly, they're going to the jungler's fault or the guy doesn't play properly on him. He's had two different types of junglers now. He had Amazing and now he's had Santorin. How do you think they play for Bjergsen's style? Like which one fits him, or what do you think they do to aid Bjergsen?
I think Santorin fits him better. Also, after MSI, Santorin have been, we scrimmed TSM a lot. And Santorin have been playing like much more aggressive than before we scrimmed him before MSI. So he's like ganking much more now and applying much more pressure, focusing much less on farming. So I think Santorin fits his style much better.
So another fellow Dane of yours, Svenskeren, people might forget this because it was the first LCS split, but he used to be the jungler of Bjergsen when he was a rookie. So he's had Bjergsen as his mid, he's had Jezis, obviously more recently he had Fox. What do you think is the best style of mid laner to go with Svenskeren's strengths? Like what would ideally be his kind of mid that would work with his unique style?
Probably Bjergsen, or it would either be Bjergsen or a guy who's like just playing control mages, but I would say Bjergsen.
What do you think it is about his start? It seems like he's got a weird, no one else quite plays like him in Europe at least.
Svenskeren is like very aggressive, and he always tries to like hunt down the enemy jungler, at least from last season. I haven't seen much of him this season, so I'm not really sure. But back then he was like very aggressive and like always tried to like find the other jungler. And so it releases a lot of pressure on the other team, from his team on the other side of the map. So they can do whatever they want pretty much, knowing where their jungler is.
From doing interviews with mid laners, I've noticed that you'd think every mid laner, his whole thought process would always be about like himself and the other mids and like always comparing himself. But I actually noticed most mid laners, because they always complain if they get ganked, they're like obsessed with the enemy jungler. They're like, certain enemy junglers they might think are amazing that I don't think are that good, but just because they always get them, you know. Who's the guy in NA at the moment where you're like, that guy's the most annoying jungler to play against?
Probably Santorin.
Why?
Because he constantly applies pressure on mid and always early ganks, and he's like, I don't know, the junglers that are most annoying are those who just flashes to trade your flash. That's because it really like puts you very far behind, because you cannot play aggressive or overextend if your flash is down. So it's probably the most annoying to play against. I haven't played against all of them yet, so it's hard to tell.
In general, just from scrims, is there like a general trend of difference between the NA style of jungling and EU?
I'm not sure. I haven't played scrims in EU, so I'm not entirely sure, but EU jungler seems much more aggressive compared to NA jungler.
Okay, I need a bold prediction here, okay? If in like 3 years from now, I did an interview, let's say I did an interview with Deficio, okay? I'm purposely picking Deficio because I'm going to ask Deficio in this interview, like, okay, I need you to make me the all-time great like Danish League of Legends team, you know, so you can pick like the top player and the jungler. In 3 years from now, he says like mid laner, Incarnation.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
He does it?
Yeah, he does it.
Fair enough. Okay, do you have any final words or a final message for people who watch the interview?
Just thanks for supporting me and Cloud9.
Okay. Tusind tak.
Tusind tak.